This is the message that had to be told, and I will not leave this spot until it has been said. Jesus is love, and He died to give us life. Now that was the short version, so here comes the long one. Life began because God wanted it to. Precious before created, desirable before existence. That is the sum of man. Long before time even began, the Almighty saw dust and had a crush on it. And from the ashes and mud of a world He created from His own hand, that He breathed into us, and from that point an all-powerful became a loving Father, and we were His children. But something happened that changed it up. Somehow our internals suddenly needed more. Why? Who knows? But something happened that tore it all down. And that something was sin. Simple in noticing, subtle in nothing, staying in negative, simple in nature. Sin. Sin is the simple turn away from the beauty of God. Sin is the guilt and pain of our own consequences. Sin is the losing out of full satisfaction because we took the lesser but easier route of good rather than perfection. For as we are born from the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, we now live life knowing good but doing evil. And if that was a little confusing, let me use my life to simplify. Sin was a time when I stole a little boy's coin and spent it as he cried. Sin was a slip of my tongue that said a less than true rumor that led a girl to tears. But who cares? Not my tears. But that was not even enough. Sin was a time when I stared at a young girl's body, not knowing she was my sister, and defiling her in my mind. Sin was hating my neighbor, not knowing he was my brother, and cutting his back in the shadows of my fantasies. Simple in nature. This is the summary of my life, of charges of murder and rape and thievery and bullying. The ranges of the set comes from the large to the small, of the few to the many, and on top of that is the growing pain of that frustrating knowledge of knowing good yet doing evil. That guilt, the guilt of which so hard, so painfully clings and hinders and catches. It whispers dark advices and a true image of myself, an image of a man whose consequences are chasing at his heels, of his crimes gathering as a sentence upon his head. This is the man who is in fact a dead man. Yes, dead man. All around is the judgment of heaven and earth, and in both the eyes of sinners and saints alike, they see my consequences and my charges and come to the same conclusion that I deserve death, and yes, death. In my selfishness and my hate, I have broken the laws of both man and God. The breath that was given as a gift was wasted and should be given back. Let's face it, I owe him! But wait, there's more. For you see, there is good news in response to my disaster. There is a way out of my sentence, and it can be found in the pages of Genesis, Leviticus, and Exodus, and in which it says that if something perfect were to take my place, then it is perfection slaughtered so that I can be given back life. But who among us can live up to perfection? A standard which was written by God's own finger. There was no other standard but the perfection of God. But here's the part that blows minds to this day. Since perfection can all be matched by the perfection of God, it was God Himself who came down to live the perfect life. God, who came down as Jesus, lived a life that fulfilled the payment. He was the perfection slaughtered imperfectly so that my life, so imperfect, can be seen as perfection. Yes, Jesus. Jesus, the man who lived a selfless life, who walked so that the lame can walk and talked so that the mute can speak. He saw the blind so that the blind may see. He sat with the widows and the children and the broken and the lonely and the spit upon, the cast of glee, if you want to see it like that. He called them by name, each and every one by name, so that their isolation became fellowship, their humiliation became friendship, guilt repaid with forgiveness, consequences replaced with gifts, and in His arms, judgment was translated into love. Jesus was a man who was in every way guiltless, blameless, righteous, purity, selfless, a redeemer and healer, perfect in all glory and honor, love. And he took it as a mission to take my pain and consequence and became my desolation, isolation, humiliation, filthiness, brokenness, subjugated slave to disaster, death. All because in God's mind was a simple concept that the rightful king should become savior by being sacrificed. The king became savior by being sacrificed for me. And if one were to catch a glimpse of this illogical choice, the question then arises that begs to ask why? Why? Because God saw in me amidst my filth, beauty. God saw in me, in my weaknesses, the fitting spaces for His strength. He saw in my desolation a desirable action. He saw when I was alone, took joy in my company. When I was seen too small in the eyes of many, He saw me as the right size for His embrace. When others saw me as trash, He saw me as treasure. And when both sinners and saints alike has called me insignificant, He looked down on me and said, that is a man worth dying for. And with no reservation on His own part, though others were hesitant to respond, He pointed to me and said, that is my new creation and I love him. This is the message that had to be told. That there is no other intervention that can be found anywhere, no matter how you look. A simple action of love that demanded sacrifice. Simply out of love, a sacrifice was made. And this love saved me. But it's not just for me. You see, this invitation to intervention is open to all. Everyone and anyone, from the east to the west, from the children to the adult, from the man to the women. We are covered in a love that's covering like the atmosphere, hold together by scarred hands. You think you can hide your secrets from God? All the pain and suffering that you find too embarrassing to share, He has saw your tears and He cried with you. He saw your pain and He hurt with you. And in the midst of the dark guilt that we hide in our rooms, He reaches out with nail-pierced hands saying, take hold, I love you. And though you are covered in the filth of your undoing, I see you as precious. You are beautiful though no one else will see it. You are amazing though no one else would admit it. You had mistakes and mishaps that scarred and tore you apart. You have changes for the worse that have blackened your face. And though there were those who hated you and defiled you, I am here to heal you. And with my own death and my own blood, I wrote a pardon that said, I will save and cover you. I had nowhere else to go and no savior till that day. I reached out and trying to hold on, and here is again His hand reaching out to you, and will you take hold? This is the message that had to be told.